Welcome to my channel.
Every morning at exactly 6:15 I woke up nauseous. Not hungover. Not sick. Just poison feeling. The doctors ran tests for months. Blood panels. Scans. Neurology consults. Nothing abnormal. Stress, they said. Maybe anxiety. I don't have anxiety. I have patterns. My name is Caleb Mercer. 42. Structural engineer. Logical. Grounded. I don't imagine symptoms. But the nausea only happened on weekdays. Never on weekends. That detail stayed with me. One Tuesday on my way to work, the subway stalled between stations. Packed car. Shoulder to shoulder. A street jeweler, the kind who repairs watches and chains from a small velvet case, was standing near the door. When the train lurched, he grabbed my hand to steady himself. His fingers brushed the gold chain around my neck. He froze. "Take off the pendant," he said quietly. I frowned. "Excuse me?" He leaned closer. His eyes weren't curious. They were sharp. "I can see what's inside it." I instinctively stepped back. "My wife gave this to me for our anniversary." He didn't smile. "Then open it," he said calmly. "Open it in front of me." The subway lights flickered once. For a second it felt like the entire car was listening. "It's sealed," I said, gripping the pendant. "It doesn't open." The jeweler tilted his head. "All pendants open. Some just don't want you to know they do." I almost laughed. Almost. But something in his tone wasn't theatrical. It was technical. "I repair antique lockets," he continued quietly. "That hinge line? It's microscopic. Custom work." My pulse started climbing. My wife had given it to me 6 months ago. Engraved. Personalized. "So you'll always carry my heart," she'd said. I swallowed. "You're mistaken." He didn't argue. He just reached into his velvet case and pulled out a thin precision tool. "Open it here," he said. "Or open it at home. But open it." The train screeched back into motion. The moment broke. When the doors slid open at the next station, he stepped out. Before leaving, he looked at me once more. "You said you feel sick in the mornings?" I froze. "I didn't tell you that." He held my gaze. "You didn't have to." And then he disappeared into the crowd. I didn't go to work that morning. I stood on the subway platform long after the train left, my hand wrapped around the pendant like it might bite me. Microscopic hinge. Custom work. 6 months ago. The nausea had started 5.5 months ago. I told myself this was paranoia. A stranger planting doubt. A coincidence. But logic doesn't ignore timelines. I went straight home. My wife was at her Pilates class, Tuesdays and Thursdays at 7:30 a.m. Like clockwork. Patterns. I locked the door behind me and stood in the kitchen under bright light. The pendant looked innocent. Polished gold. Small engraving on the back, Forever C&L. Caleb and Lila. I grabbed a magnifying glass from my desk drawer. And there it was. A hairline seam running along the edge. Invisible unless you were looking for it. My stomach twisted, not from nausea this time. From clarity. I pressed my thumbnail against the seam. Nothing. Then I remembered the jeweler's tool. I didn't have one. But I had engineering precision tools in my garage. 10 minutes later, under a workbench lamp, I slid a thin blade into the seam. It clicked open. Inside wasn't a photo. It was powder. Fine. Packed carefully. My hands started shaking. And for the first time in months, I knew exactly why I'd been sick. I didn't touch the powder. Engineering teaches you one rule: never contaminate evidence before you understand it. I set the pendant down carefully on the metal workbench and stared at it under the lamp. Fine grains. Almost weightless. Packed in a shallow cavity behind a thin mesh lining. So it wasn't meant to be swallowed. It was meant to breathe. Every morning I wore it while shaving. While making coffee. While standing under hot shower steam. Heat. Moisture. Friction. Controlled exposure. My stomach dropped. I sealed the pendant inside a Ziploc bag and drove straight to a private lab downtown. Not a hospital. Hospitals talk. Labs test. I didn't tell them the story. Just said I suspected contamination. Paid cash. 3 hours later I got the call. "Mr. Mercer, preliminary analysis shows trace amounts of thallium compounds." Thallium. I didn't know much about it. I didn't need to. The technician continued. "Low-dose exposure can cause nausea, fatigue, nerve damage over time. Over time. Slow. Deliberate." I hung up and sat in my car outside the lab. 6 months of marriage anniversaries. 6 months of her adjusting the chain around my neck herself. And every morning, she kissed me before work. I didn't confront her. Not yet. People who poison slowly don't panic easily. They plan. They measure. They wait. So I waited too. That evening, I wore the pendant like nothing had changed. When Lila came home, she smiled the way she always did, soft, attentive, almost concerned. "You look pale again," she said, brushing her fingers against the chain. Adjusting it. Adjusting the dosage. "I'm fine," I replied calmly. "Just work stress." She studied me for a second longer than usual. Calculating. That night, while she showered, I replaced the contents. I emptied the thallium into a sealed container and filled the cavity with inert powder, crushed vitamin supplement. Same color. Same texture. Harmless. Then I closed the hinge. Seam invisible again. The next morning, I watched her carefully. No hesitation. No fear. She fastened the chain around my neck herself. "You always forget," she said playfully. But here's what she didn't know. I had already filed a quiet police report. And I had installed cameras in the house. Not obvious ones. Discreet. Targeted. Because poisoning is a long game. And if she thought I was still weakening, she was about to discover I'd stopped playing victim. 3 days passed. No nausea. No dizziness. No trembling hands. My body felt clearer than it had in months. Lila noticed. "You seem better," she said over dinner, watching me too closely. "New vitamins," I replied casually. "Doctor's suggestion." Her fork paused midair for half a second. Then she smiled. "Good." That night, I reviewed the camera footage. Kitchen. Bedroom. Bathroom hallway. At 6:08 a.m., before I usually wake up, she entered the bathroom quietly. Opened the medicine cabinet. Looked at herself in the mirror for a long moment. Then she reached for the chain resting on the counter. She opened it. Her fingers paused. She frowned. The mesh lining was still there, but the texture had changed. Subtle. Almost imperceptible. She tapped the inside with her nail. Rubbed the powder between her fingers. Then she did something that removed all doubt. She pulled out her phone. Typed something. Zoomed in on the screen. Comparison photo. She was checking if the color matched. My chest tightened, not with fear. With confirmation. This wasn't paranoia. This wasn't accident. This was maintenance. And as she stood there under the bathroom light, studying the contents of the pendant she had given me, she had no idea I was watching her live from my office downstairs. I didn't storm upstairs. I recorded everything. Time-stamped. Backed up. Uploaded to a secure cloud server under an encrypted file name. Engineers don't react emotionally. We document. At 6:12 a.m., she closed the pendant. At 6:14, she fastened it around my neck with the same soft smile she'd worn for 6 months. "You'll be late," she said, kissing my cheek. I looked at her the way I used to. Trusting. But inside, something had shifted permanently. By noon, I met with a federal investigator from the report I had filed earlier in the week. I didn't dramatize it. I handed over lab results, video footage, purchase records. Purchase records. Thallium isn't something you buy accidentally. It's traceable. Especially when ordered through specialized suppliers under false labeling. The investigator leaned back after reviewing the footage. "This is intent," he said quietly. Intent. That word mattered. That evening, I came home as usual. Lila was setting the table. Candlelight. Wine poured. Anniversary leftovers reheated like a ritual. She smiled warmly. "I'm glad you're feeling better." I nodded. "Me too." Then there was a knock at the door. 2 federal agents stepped inside. And for the first time since the subway, her hands started shaking. The candles were still lit when they read her the warrant. Lila didn't scream. She didn't confess. She did something far more revealing. She looked at me. Not with guilt. With calculation collapsing in real time. "This is insane," she said evenly. "He's sick. He's paranoid." One of the agents placed a clear evidence bag on the dining table. Inside it, the pendant. Seemed visible now. No illusion left to protect. "We recovered trace purchase records of thallium compounds tied to your account," the agent said. "And we have video documentation of you accessing the device." Device. Not jewelry. Not gift. Device. Her composure cracked then. Not tears. Anger. "You went through my things?" "No," I said quietly. "You went through my bloodstream." They escorted her out past the neighbors' windows. The house felt different immediately. Not quieter. Just honest. 6 months of controlled exposure. 6 months of watching me weaken. I kept the pendant. Not as evidence. As reminder. My name is Caleb Mercer. I survived something designed to erase me slowly. The doctors found nothing. A stranger on a subway saw everything. And the only thing more dangerous than poison is trust given to the wrong hands.